Hello there. Today we are talking about one of my favorite topics, which is the science of happiness at work. This is something I've been following for over 20 years and used in all of the work I do. When I give talks and workshops, everything I say is based on the available research. And there is so much cool research. So we're going to talk about that. I have coffee. I hope you do too. Let's do this. And I have three topics I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the five most important lessons from the happiness research that's out there. I want to talk about how to apply these in your workplace. And I want to give you some great examples from workplaces who have already done this. We're going to do this in half an hour or less. That's my challenge to myself. If you have any questions, you can ask me anything in the comments. If you're watching this live, I will do a comments, look at the comments and answer questions at the end of this video. If you're watching it not live later, ask any comments, ask any question in the comments, and I'll see your comment and I'll reply to that. Um, why does this topic matter? Why should we care about the science of happiness at work? Well, it's really very simple. When I go out and talk to workplaces who want to become better workplaces, they very often focus on stuff like this, right? Smoothies, free food, free coffee, yoga classes, mindfulness trainings, that kind of thing. Like this is a list of some of the initiatives I've seen companies do. I went to do a workshop for all the managers at a big multinational company in Budapest, and they showed me, I'm not even kidding, it showed me like a binder this thick of what they call their happiness and well-being initiatives. And all of it was stuff like this, like discounted gym memberships or spinning classes or whatever. And here's the thing, none of that stuff works. I have a previous video where I talked to Louise Lambert, a researcher, about this. And there's new research showing that all these individual level interventions just don't work. They do nothing for our happiness at work. And I think that's why we gotta, and there's science to prove this, that this doesn't work. So that's why I think we need to follow the science, right? We can't just go off guesswork. We can't just do what every other company in our city or in our industry is doing. We got to look at the research and figure out why, what works and what doesn't work. Why? First of all, so we can waste less time and money on stuff that does not work. And that's what frustrates me so much, right? Is that a lot of companies have figured out that, happy workplaces make more money and they genuinely want their employees to be happier. But it's just that they waste all of their time and money on stuff that doesn't work. And then they have no time and energy left for the stuff that does work. Yeah. And that's just frustrating to see. Also, if we know the available science and we can follow that, that will make it a lot easier to convince management to support any happiness initiatives in the workplace, because we can say to them, "Hey, if we do this, here's research that proves that this is actually going to improve employee happiness, and therefore give certain employee, business benefits." By the way, in my previous video, you can watch that. I also cover the business benefits of happiness at work according to the research, why happy companies make more money. And the third and final reason why we should, follow the science is that science is so cool. It's a fairly new thing that we have actual research evidence on what makes people happy or unhappy. For thousands of years, philosophers have speculated and they've come up with some very good guesses. But now we have numbers, we have statistics, we have actual data on what it is that makes people happy at work. That's come out in the last few decades, like in the last 20 or 30 years. And that stuff is absolutely fascinating. There are so many cool findings. And I've been following that for over 20 years, and I'm going to share my top five. A lot of this comes directly from the field that's called positive psychology. Researchers like Ed Diener, Barbara Fredrickson, Sonia Lubomirsky have done amazing work in this field, and a lot of this comes from them. In the materials for this video, I will share some additional book suggestions and articles you can look up if you want to dive more into that. So here are, in my opinion, the top 5 findings from the happiness research that that also apply in the workplace. And finding number 1 is that emotions matter. How we feel has a huge effect, not only on our emotions, on our emotional state, but also on our well being in general, our physical health, and our productivity in the workplace. And this is enormously important to remember because in most workplaces, there isn't a lot of focus on emotions. Like it's like, leave your emotions at home, come to work, be professional, be serious, be committed. But don't feel too much. You can do that you can feel in your spare time. And also in a lot of workplaces, there's a lot of focus on, if they focus on employee well-being, they often do it through the lens of job satisfaction, try to make our employees satisfied with their jobs, which isn't going to work as well. And here's the distinction that I make in my work is that job satisfaction is what you think about your job, right? It's a rational, logical, intellectual evaluation of your job situation, weighing all the pros and cons, like, my salary, could be better, but, my commute is not too long. My working hours are nice, but maybe the work is a little boring. So you sit down and you evaluate all of these situations, all of these circumstances, and you decide, are you satisfied or not? That's very much a rational thing. It's a thought process. Whereas, so that's job satisfaction. Happiness at work, on the other hand, which I think workplaces should focus on, is about how you feel about your job. It's your emotional state at work. And of course, that's going to change. Like you're going to have good days and bad days. Maybe one work day starts bad, but ends up good, or the other way around. But it's about, in general, how do people feel about their jobs? Do they spend most of their time at work experiencing positive emotions like curiosity about their work, interest in the work they do, pride because they do a good job, a feeling of acceptance because they're valued as coworkers, a feeling of accomplishment because they do a good job, a feeling of like pride because they make a difference, or are people spending a lot of time at work experiencing negative emotions like fear, shame, frustration, anger, feeling of unfairness, that kind of thing? And what we need to realize, and a very, very clear finding from the happiness research, is that emotions really matter. How you feel is not just it's not just a detail. It's actually it has a huge effect on how you perform in the workplace as well, and also how you do in general in life. And these are the effects that the research has found on from positive emotions. So when people feel good about their jobs, we know they are. I can show you a few of these. We know they're more productive, they're more creative, more helpful, give better customer service, more motivated, and so on and so on and so on. And that is why it's very, very clear from the research that happy companies make more money, whereas satisfied companies don't necessarily do that. The correlation between business results and emotions at work is very, very clear. And when people feel good about their jobs, when they're happy at work, they do a much better job and the company makes more money. And that's what I covered also in my previous video in more detail. And that's why companies need to focus. Again, the research is very clear here. Companies need to focus less on the stuff that makes us satisfied, which is a lot of the stuff I showed previously, like the yoga classes and the like gym memberships and that kind of thing. And the research needs to then the companies need to focus on what it is that makes us happy at work, what makes us feel good at work. And the good thing is that there's research on that as well. And I've looked at all of that research, and in my opinion, it sort of boils down to two things that make us happy at work: results and relationships. In a future video, I'm going to go into way more detail on each of those two because they're so crucial. But very briefly, results is feeling good about your work, knowing that you do a good job and that your work is important. It matters. It makes a difference for somebody somewhere, a coworker, a client, the environment, whatever. And then relationships is when you're valued in the workplace, when you feel like you belong, you're treated like a human being, and you have a good relationship with your coworkers, your managers, maybe even clients, whatever. So these are the two things, according to the research, that actually make us feel good about our jobs. This is where workplaces should focus. So that's lesson number one: is that emotions matter. We should try to make people feel good at work most of the time. And the two main things that make us happy at work are results and relationships. So the lesson here is that I think we need to focus more on positive emotions, results, and relationships, and less on satisfaction. And that includes things like compensation, titles, perks, and all of that. Um, Compensation and perks still need to be fair. I'm not saying we can ignore that. Unfair compensation makes people very unhappy, which we need to avoid. But once those things are fair, they're not what make us happy at work. That is something else. Beautiful. I want to show an example of this. This is from Lego from a few years ago when they'd had another record year, and they wanted to celebrate that to create this feeling of results. And here's what their CEO at the time, Jørgen V. Knudstorp, did in front of the world's assembled financial press.
It is another record-breaking year, the best year ever for the Lego Group. So just like at the Oscars or just like in the movie theaters this last year, we are also dancing and singing and saying, everything is awesome, everything is cool when you're part of the team, everything is awesome when you're living in a dream. So it has been a great year.
I thought that was pretty awesome. So that was tip number one. Tip number two, and this is a very, very clear lesson from the happiness research, is that a lot of us think that if I want to be happy, I need to get more things, right? You can if you stop people in the street and you ask them, so what will make you happy? A lot of people will say like winning the lottery. But it turns out that if you want to be happy, it is way more important to be able to appreciate the good things you already have. Things like gratitude, things like savoring good experiences, being able to focus on the good things you have in your life turns out to create way more happiness than just constantly getting more good things. We know that for a fact from the research, and we can definitely also apply that in the workplace. And the reason why this is an important lesson to remember is that we are sort of at the mercy of negativity bias. And negativity bias is just, again, very clear in the research. It turns out that our minds are just more attuned to focus on anything that is negative, anything that is a threat, anything that is bad, anything that we don't like will be more apparent to us. So we more readily remember bad experiences. For instance, if a customer has had a bad experience with a workplace, with a company, they're likely to tell 10 people. If they had a good experience, they may tell one person. So we need to, so in our workplaces, anything that is bad, anything that is frustrating, anything that is annoying, anything that is not working well, will just naturally take up more space in people's minds. It will affect their emotional state more, will make them more unhappy. And also will spread faster inside the organization. If a coworker is really annoying, we often talk about that person a lot. If somebody's really nice, we might not talk about them as much. So inside the workplace, I've noticed this in so many cases. It's the negative takes up a lot of space, and the negative sort of spreads itself automatically. So what we can do, I think, if you want our employees to be happy, is create space for focusing more on the positive things we already have in the workplace. So that's my next tip based on this finding from the research, is that we should spend more time helping our employees appreciate what makes them happy, and less time just constantly focusing on the next thing, the next project, the next whatever. Yeah. I'm not saying we should ignore the problems. I think it's very, very important to fix the problems we have in the workplace. And I'm going to make a video on that soon, on why that is so important and how to approach that. But I will also say that the negative things in the workplace tend to take up more and more and more mental space, and we tend to forget about the good things. Here's a very simple way to do that I always recommend is, if you have like recurring team meetings, like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly team meetings, always start a meeting with celebrating something positive. Talk about something that's gone well in the team, something that was positive, something that people enjoyed. Maybe let somebody from the team share something that went well. I think that's hugely important. Otherwise, the negative will just take up more and more space, more and more mental space, and create a lot of unhappiness. And we'll forget about all the good things. And it doesn't matter how many good things you have in your life. If you can't appreciate them, you'll never be happy. So that's why this is so important, that we create space for sharing the good experiences. I want to show an example. This is from one of our clients here in Copenhagen. We did some workshops for this client, and then they came up with this idea. They made these cards, and they put them around the office for 2 weeks. It says, "My good experiences for today." And the idea was that for those 2 weeks, every day, just before you left work to go home, you could take one of those cards and write down a good experience from the day, and then hang it on this clothesline that was going through the entire office. And then, of course, you could, share your experiences, and you can read everybody else's good experiences. And that was such a great idea, and that like helped people focus on the good things. Turns out, by the way, we also know from the research that the more you practice gratitude, the better you get at it, and the more easily you can remember the good things as well. By the way, the more you practice spreading negative stories, the better you get at that, and the more easily you remember just negative experiences. So creating venues, creating systems, creating processes inside the organization for sharing the good things, the things that went well, the things we enjoy, the things that make us happy, the people we like, talk about them, share those stories. The more we can do that, the better. Coffee time. Tip number 3, and this is super interesting, is that we know from the happiness research that fairly small things can have fairly large effects. If you want to make somebody else happier, you don't need to like do something massive for them. Like small little things can actually really boost people's happiness, especially when it's something does for them, something nice that happens to them. Um, so I mention this because in many workplaces, when we want to make our employees happy, we do a few big things, right? So there's like maybe the annual company summer party, and that's a huge affair. The whole company comes together. There's like a huge budget. Takes a lot of time to plan, but it's only once a year, right? So even if that makes people very happy, it's only once a year. That's not enough. So my advice for people here is to really focus less for companies, really focus less on like those few huge events, and then do way more small events often. Yeah, regularly occurring small events. Um, and that is way more likely to have an effect on people's happiness rather than that one big thing. I'm not saying cancel the company summer party. Please still do have that. But instead of only having that and like putting all your eggs in that basket and blowing your whole budget on that party, do small little things along the way. In the materials, I'm going to share a video from Innocent Drinks in London and how they do these. They call them moments of surprise and delight. Those are just amazing. Um, here's an example from one of our clients here in Denmark. This is from IKEA, one of the IKEA warehouses here, and they want to do like a nice little thing. So they set up a praise wall for their employees to praise each other, and this is in the employee area. It hangs on their way to the company cafeteria, employee cafeteria. And the idea was that if you wanted to praise one of your coworkers, you could grab a piece of paper, write their name and what you wanted to praise them for. You can see how much praise they actually have hanging here already. Um, and everybody sees this when they go to breakfast, lunch, dinner during the workday. So this is like a nice little moment of here. Oh, somebody noticed me. Somebody noticed me do something nice. Noticed me do something well. Um, yeah, so I really like this kind of thing, and this, this costs no money, takes no time to set up, or very little time to set up. And those little things often are way more impactful than doing a few big things rarely. So that was tip number 3. Tip number 4. Um, again, I talk about these few big things that companies often do, and a lot of those are scheduled way in advance, right? 6 months out when the company summer party is going to be. When the annual Christmas present from the company, when you get that. A lot of these things are scheduled in advance. It's going to be there every year around this time. But what we know from the research is that, when something nice happens to you that is coming, that you expect, it makes you a little happier. But when something nice happens to you out of the blue, it actually makes you a lot happier. It has a larger effect on your emotional state, on your happiness. So that's why we recommend that companies focus more on like surprising, unplanned new activities, and less on that those activities that everybody knows is coming. So again, you can have the company's on party, but also maybe do these little random surprising new things along the way. It's also a fact that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, the effect is going to be less and less and less every time. So that's why you're never done creating a happy workplace. You're going to need to constantly reevaluate and renew the approach. I want to show an example. This is from a medical pharmaceutical company in Iceland where I went to do a workshop. And after my workshop, I was doing a follow up call with the client, and I challenged the CEO. And I asked him, so what could you do? Could you do something nice, like surprising for employees? And then about a week later, he sent me these pictures of him setting up to make pancakes randomly unannounced for all the employees in the afternoon in the workplace. And I thought that was just great. So nobody knew those were coming. Suddenly he's there in an apron making fresh pancakes for everybody. And I thought that was just great. They did have to disable the fire alarm, the smoke detector, because it kept going off because of all the pancakes. But otherwise, other than that, it went great. Now, of course, as I said, you have to reinvent that. If he does that every week, the effect is going to go away, and that's why you need to keep this fresh and surprising, and do these things that again surprise people. Yes. So that was tip number 4, and then tip number 5, and that is without a doubt the most important tip, and in my opinion, the most important finding from the happiness research. If there's one thing I could make you like physically reach through the screen and make you take away from this video, it will be this: um, that we know very clearly from the happiness research that when we do nice things for ourselves, it makes us a little happier. But when we do nice things for others, it makes them happier and it makes us happier. So if you really want your employees to be happy, find ways to help them make others happy and show them that through their work, they are making other people happier in some way. Why is this so important? I think this is basically just human nature. This is just how we are born. This is who we are, and I think it says something incredibly positive about us. Um, here's a fantastic experiment they've done at the Institute for Anthropology at Max Planck Institute for Anthropology. In these experiments, they take a toddler and put them in a room, and then they show them an adult who needs help, and you watch what these toddlers do. And without any prompting, these small kids with no reward, they just want to help. They just go up and out of the blue, because that's our human nature, they help other people. By the way, they've done similar experiments with apes, and apes do the exact same thing. I think that's amazing. That's our nature. I know that a lot of people want to make it seem like humans are by nature bad. Humans are by nature selfish and greedy, and just in it for themselves, especially at work. If you ever heard, can't trust anybody at work. It's a dog eat dog world. But I think people can end up behaving like that if you put people in a system that promotes and rewards that kind of behavior. Then yes, that is how we behave, but that's not our human nature. Our most fundamental human nature is that we want to help others. We want those around us to be happy. We are by nature generous and empathetic. Uh, even from early childhood, that is who we are. And I think that says something incredibly positive about us as a species. And if we want to apply this in the workplace, and I think we do, then I think workplaces need to focus a little less on constantly doing things for employees, right? Here's a yoga class, here's a present, here's a discounted gym membership, here's free coffee, here's free food, here's whatever, right? And then focus more on helping employees do things for others through their work, showing them that your work is actually helping people who really need it. That makes work really meaningful, gives work a lot of purpose, and it makes the employees really happy because they can be proud of the work they do. Now, if there's one organization, one workplace around the world that has really taken this to heart, I think it's Zappos in Vegas, the online retailer. I've been there like 4 or 5 times. I gave a talk there. It's one of those workplaces where you walk in and you can just feel this is a good place to be. And they do this in so many ways. This helping employees make others happy. They have an internal platform called Zappos Wishes, where employees can write, "I need help with this," and then people can help each other. I think that's fantastic. Also great for creating relationships inside the workplace. They have a balloons and shit program in the HR department. So if somebody at work has like an anniversary or a birthday, you can go there and you can get a package of balloons to celebrate them. I think that's do something nice for somebody else. They have this program where it's very easy to send postcards to customers. So if you talk to a customer, you have a phone call with a customer, you have a really good connection or whatever, send them a nice postcard, make that person happy. But one program that I really enjoy is that they have this annual Thanksgiving party for all the homeless people in Vegas. Huge homeless problem in the U.S. And especially in Vegas. And once a year, they do this event where they bring in invite all the homeless people in Vegas to come get a Thanksgiving dinner, free pair of socks, and free pair of shoes.
We got a great day planned for you. We're going to be able to provide you a brand new pair of shoes, be able to provide you a brand new pair of socks, and be able to provide you a wonderful Thanksgiving feast. Yes.
And the line was long, but I knew it would be because everybody wanted to go.
Well, one of the things is we need shoes. Of course, I have one leg, so I need a shoe, but I like to still be styling anyway, you know.
I got these, and they're designer, of course, and they're getting awfully dirty. But what are you going to do? I live in a shelter, right?
I think that's just phenomenal. When you're homeless, you're walking the streets. A good pair of shoes is actually critically important. So this is really helping people. And as a Zappos employee, you can participate in this entire program, and you can see that again, your workplace is doing good. You're doing good. You're helping somebody else. You're making somebody else a little happier, and that comes right back to you and makes you a lot happier as well. So that is crucially important, and there are like two approaches here. There's both like giving employees opportunities to make others happier, clients, co-workers, the environment, somebody who needs it. But it's also telling people that they actually do that your work actually makes a difference. I had a client in Copenhagen, a pharmaceutical company, where they had problems. They had production line, a factory, and they had a problem with quality control. So there were a lot of errors in the products. And then one day they brought in some people who actually use these products, like patients who actually use these products, and they made them explain, here's what happens for us when these products work. Here's what happens for us when these products fail. Here's how important these products are to us. And that gave the employees a sense that, when we do our work well, these products actually function as intended, and these people are happier. Their lives are better. They avoid some of these health problems. And that made the employees happier and made quality shoot up, and mistakes, errors dropped. So this idea, giving employees an opportunity to help others, but also telling them when they do, bringing this information back to them that your work, your efforts actually help these people, showing them that is, I think, hugely, hugely important. So that was my fifth and final tip. Let me sum up here and then take some questions. So these are my 5 tips, right? First of all, focus less on satisfaction and more on happiness, how employees feel. Create results in relationships, because those are the 2 main drivers of positive emotions in the workplace. Focus less on the next big thing and focus more on helping people appreciate the good things they already have in their workplace, in their work days, in their teams, in their work. Focus less on a few huge activities throughout the year and focus more on frequent, smaller activities. That's going to have a way larger impact in overall. Focus less on scheduled activities like the ones that have been pre-planned for years, for months or weeks or months, and focus more on surprising activities out of the blue. And finally, focus less on doing things for employees and more on helping them and showing them that they already do things for others, that they are making the world better in some way. If you want more information on any of this stuff, you can go to our website, woohooing.com, our blog, positivesharing.com. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. That would be amazing. Happy to connect. You can find us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Woohoo Inc. And of course, you can subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. And finally, if you really want to know more about any of these topics, you can obviously come book me. Book me to come speak at your company, at your conference. We get really good ratings, 9.6 out of 10 for our last 300 talks. And with that, let me see if there are any questions. Alrighty. I hope you found that useful. Let me see if there are any. There are 3 comments. Somebody wrote that they would really love to attend one of my classes. I can only recommend that. That's a great idea. You should do that. Here's another question. How exactly do emotions affect our performance? Why should how you feel affect how well you work? And that's a great question. One of my favorite books on this is called The Progress Principle by Theresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer, where they look at people's inner work lives, and they conclude specifically that, first of all, that how we feel has a huge effect on our performance, specifically on how open our minds are. So when people are happy and then they feel good, their minds are more open to new experiences, to new ideas, to new inputs, to working well with others. That's certainly an aspect of it. Another aspect is that when we feel good, we exhibit more pro-social behavior. It's very well known from the research that we are kinder, more generous, nicer to others, more likely to work well together, to communicate well, more likely to assume the best about other people, assume good intentions instead of just assuming that everybody's a jerk. So that is definitely part of it. The health effects, if you experience many negative emotions over a long period of time, that is very stressful. Creates a lot of health problems, increases absenteeism, which again lowers productivity. And finally, I mean, it's just, your mind works better. You do better work when you're having a good day than when you're having a bad day. There's like a specific experiment where they took people into the lab and gave them little tasks, and then some of them got a piece of chocolate before they started the task, or they watched the funny video. And some people were in a control group, they watched that non-funny video, and the people who are just a little happier actually performed 12% better on these tasks. So it is pretty clear that our emotional state has a huge influence on both our well-being, mental and physical, but also our ability to perform. And I think these are some of the reasons why. And the last question is there a risk that you overfocus on happiness? Can it all become too much? I think yes, technically that's a risk, but I haven't seen a workplace do it yet. I've seen a lot of workplaces overfocus on unhappiness. Definitely, like overfocus on stress and frustration and basically making people unhappy at work that way. But you can't. At the end of the day, it's a workplace, right? We're there to do work, and the happiness we try to create in the workplace should be in the service of this important and meaningful work. That you don't go to work to be happy; you go to work to work. But ultimately, if you are happy, you do better work, right? But the happiness cannot be the point. The work has to be the point, and it has to be meaningful work. Like you are helping the customers, you are helping the city, you are helping the country, you are helping the patients, whatever, right? So I think if you do it that way, and make it very clear that yes, we want you to be happy, and that happiness is going to enable all of us to make even more of a positive difference for the people we serve in our workplace, then I don't think you can overfocus on happiness. You can't constantly go and ask yourself, how happy are you? That's actually in the research that's been proven to have a negative effect on your happiness. And also, there is actually some research that indicates that you can be too happy. This is in private life, but there is a little bit of research indicating that, like, if you look at a scale from 0 to 10, the people who are, have the best outcomes are not the 10s on a happiness scale. It's actually the 8s. And maybe you can be a little too happy if you're like constantly at a 9 or a 10. Maybe because people who are too happy, like they are too optimistic, they ignore all warning signs. They don't see the negative problems that they also need to address. Maybe it's that kind of thing going on. So yeah, I think you can overfocus on happiness, but I haven't seen a workplace do it yet. Yes, that was the final question. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.